We live inside time as fish live inside water, surrounded by it, moved by it, and unaware that it might not be the fundamental reality we think it is. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every aging cell whispers the rhythm of time passing. But Bentov dared to ask a question that most scientists avoid. What if time is not moving at all? What if movement, change, and the feeling of time passing are all illusions created by oscillation? To understand this, we have to revisit Bentov's great metaphor, the pendulum of consciousness. Every swing of the pendulum represents a shift in awareness, from the inner to the outer, from thought to sensation, from perception to reflection. This oscillation gives rise to experience, and experience gives the illusion of sequence. Time, Bentov said, is the result of awareness oscillating between frames of reality, much like a movie reel flickering individual frames so rapidly that they appear continuous. The frames themselves don't move, they simply are. It's the flickering of awareness, the constant shift between moments of observation, that gives rise to the feeling of time flowing. When we experience normal waking life, our consciousness oscillates very quickly, billions of tiny shifts per second. The brain's neural firings, the heart's pulsations, the molecular vibrations of every cell all operate in cycles, creating the sensation of motion and continuity. But Bentov believed that at the deepest level of meditation or mystical absorption, these oscillations slow down, and at a certain threshold they stop altogether. At that still point, awareness ceases to jump from frame to frame. The sequence collapses. And what emerges is an entirely different experience of reality, timeless, spaceless, utterly still. To the mystic, this is the eternal now. To the physicist, it's the zero-point field, the ground of being where all oscillations begin and end. Bentov's genius was in suggesting that these two are the same thing described in different languages. In Stalking the Wild Pendulum, he described how consciousness, oscillating between two states, physical and non-physical, matter and energy, form and formlessness, generates the illusion of movement. When the pendulum swings from one pole to the other, awareness perceives change. But at the midpoint, when the pendulum pauses before reversing direction, there is no change at all. That moment, he said, is outside of time. He called it the still point, the center of oscillation. And it's there, in the infinite stillness between cycles, that consciousness glimpses the true nature of reality. Every oscillatory system has a midpoint, a neutral balance between its extremes. The same applies to awareness. When consciousness oscillates between dualities, past and future, thought and silence, being and non-being, it creates the felt flow of time. But at the exact center there is no polarity, no motion, no tension. This point is not something that occurs in time. It is the absence of time itself. Bentov often compared this to the motion of a pendulum under a strobe light. When the light flashes in rhythm with the pendulum swing, it can make the pendulum appear motionless, frozen in midair. In the same way, when the rhythm of consciousness aligns with the rhythm of universal oscillation, awareness becomes synchronized with the source, and everything seems still, eternal, and infinite. From that perspective, time does not flow like a river, it pulsates. Every oscillation of awareness is a tiny expansion and contraction of the universe itself, like the beating of a cosmic heart. Bentov's model of reality was cyclical, not linear. He proposed that the entire universe vibrates in rhythmic cycles, from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy. Each cycle represents an oscillation between states of energy and consciousness. And it is this universal rhythm that gives rise to what we call time. If oscillation creates the illusion of time, then slowing or halting oscillation dissolves that illusion. This, Bentov said, is what happens in deep meditative states. When the oscillations of the brain, the heart, and the body fall into perfect harmony, coherence, the amplitude of the internal waves increases and the frequency decreases. As the frequency slows, the perception of time expands. This explains why, in meditation or near-death experiences, a single second can feel like hours, or eternity can be experienced in a flash. It is not that time stretches, it is that awareness steps out of oscillation and touches the still point beyond it. He illustrated this idea with a simple analogy. Imagine standing beside a swiftly spinning wheel. When it spins rapidly, all you see is a blur, continuous motion. But as it slows, you begin to see the individual spokes. Slow it further, and you can see each spoke clearly, motionless. Finally, when the wheel stops, motion disappears, yet all the spokes still exist, all at once. That, Bentov said, is how consciousness perceives time. When oscillations are fast, we see only motion and change, life unfolding, events happening, time passing. But as we still the internal vibrations, we begin to perceive the individual spokes, the discrete frames of reality that exist simultaneously. And when oscillation ceases, we see that nothing is moving at all. All moments, all places, all possibilities exist in a single eternal field, the now. To live within the illusion of time is to be bound to oscillation. To transcend time is to find the still point within the swing, to experience consciousness as the unchanging witness of change. Bentov's explanation of time was not poetic metaphor. It was mechanical clarity disguised as mysticism. He argued that even the flow of time in physics, entropy, decay, causality, might be the macroscopic expression of microscopic oscillations. At the quantum level, everything vibrates. When those vibrations are observed sequentially, they appear as motion and duration. But at the level of pure awareness, before observation begins, there is no sequence, only unity. In a sense, we don't move through time, time moves through us. Each moment arises as the pendulum swings, each thought, each sensation, a flicker of the universal oscillation expressing itself through human consciousness. Bentov suggested that awareness itself might be the carrier wave of time. When the mind oscillates rapidly in ordinary waking life, it perceives linear time, cause and effect, progression. But as the mind slows, the carrier wave broadens, encompassing more of the spectrum. You begin to sense connections between events, synchronicities, patterns that seem to defy linear order. You start to realize that time is not something you it's something your consciousness creates. This realization can be startling. It reveals that your memories of the past, your expectations of the future, and your sense of now are all different positions of the same oscillating awareness. They're not separate. They are reflections of one continuous field, just viewed from different points in the cycle. Bentov's teachings align closely with ancient spiritual traditions that spoke of the eternal now. Mystics, yogis, and monks across ages have reported moments in meditation when time vanishes completely. They describe infinite awareness, where everything that has ever happened and ever will exists simultaneously in a single radiant presence. Bentov saw this not as poetic exaggeration but as literal truth, the mind accessing the still point of the pendulum's swing. He wrote that the human nervous system is built as a miniature model of the universe, a microcosmic oscillator mirroring the macrocosmic oscillation. When we slow our internal rhythm through meditation or deep contemplation, we bring our microcosm into harmony with the universal stillness. In that harmony, time loses its grip. And this experience, Bentov said, is the foundation of mystical insight. Because only when you leave time can you see time for what it is. From within the swing you see only motion. But from the still point you see the entire pendulum, both extremes, and the timeless axis at its center. This is what sages meant when they said, "Be still, and know that you are God." The stillness they referred to is not just physical calm, it is the cessation of oscillation, the return to the source of all motion. At that still point, awareness knows itself as infinite, because it is no longer confined by duration, sequence, or separation. Bentov believed that this was not merely a mystical state but an inevitable stage in human evolution. As our consciousness develops, as more people learn to harmonize their internal oscillations through meditation, awareness will increasingly stabilize at higher frequencies, closer to the still point. And from that center, humanity will begin to perceive time not as a prison, but as a creative tool, a rhythm we can dance with rather than be enslaved by. He described the universe as a vast symphony of oscillations, each being, each atom, each thought contributing a note. Time is simply the rhythm that holds the melody together. But behind that rhythm there is silence, the eternal stillness from which the music arises and to which it returns. And in that silence, beyond the swing of the pendulum, awareness finds its home. It realizes that it was never moving at all. The pendulum swings, the world spins, time flows, yet consciousness remains untouched, unchanging, eternal.